Professor of Communication Leadership Studies here at Gonzaga University. With me on my left is Dr. Heather Crandall, Chair of the Department, and Assistant Professor of Communication and Leadership Studies. And today we have our very special guest, Dr. Bren Murphy. Dr. Bren Murphy is our visiting scholar in residence for 2010, coming to Gonzaga to share with us her wealth of information and knowledge, help enlighten us a bit more on things that we don't have in our everyday conversation. So it's welcome to have Dr. Bren Murphy with us. Dr. Murphy, as Professor of Communication and Women's Studies and Gender Studies at Loyola, Chicago, has been on that faculty nearly
27 years.
27 years. And I've had the good fortune of knowing Bren in a number of settings associated with the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities. And over that time, we've come to appreciate each other and our work and what we do in Jesuit universities to bring a different kind of communication to our students, a different way of thinking about communication. And as part of that, she's here teaching a course for us with our graduate students, or our MA students, and she's been in a number of environments here at the university. So welcome to you, Bren.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We're making this tape, having just a dialogue, a conversation with you about things that sort of matter to you, but also some things that we think that you might say that could help us with our own students, either now or because it's the miracle of tape and saving these images and these ideas, bringing them to our students over a long period of time. And as you know, we also have many of our students who are scattered all around the country, so this will be a way they can have access even if they couldn't have come to your class or your lecture. So we'll start with that. It's just sort of where we'd like to go. I think that maybe we'd start, Bren, with just a little bit about you and communication, how you got interested in it, and then how the women's studies part grew out of that whole thing. So just some...
Great.
Yeah, good.
So, I'm sorry, that was the question?
That's the question. The question is, tell us how you got interested in studying communication.
Okay.
And then how that developed.
Journey.
Okay, all right, fine. I became interested in communication in high school because I was a debater, and I was quite active in the Forensic League. I did debate, I did theater, I did oratory, I did extemporaneous speaking, and not to be self-aggrandizing, but I was really good at it, and won all sorts of awards, and decided that I wanted to find out more about that. So I went to Northwestern University, which is where I had actually done a summer as a debate student, and fell in love with it. And so I started off at Northwestern University doing communication studies. Loved it so much that I stayed there, went on and got a master's degree, actually in interpersonal communication. Decided that I was really bad at quantitative research and switched over to rhetorical criticism. So that's how I developed as a communication scholar, to have a career in terms of communication research and teaching. I started off actually primarily interested in being a teacher. That's what intrigued me the most. And then during my doctoral studies, obviously became interested in research as well. Went back to Texas, which is where I'm from, taught high school for a while, really didn't like teaching high school in Texas, came back, and actually that's when I finished my dissertation and decided that I wanted to be a university professor.
And so how did that turn into the women and gender studies?
All right, again, this is sort of a circuitous route. I was teaching at Loyola University. I was teaching rhetoric, I was teaching persuasion, I was teaching public speaking, I was teaching interpersonal, and my chair at the time came up to me and said, all right, I've put you down for teaching gender and communication next semester. And I said, but I have no background in that. And he said, well, you're a woman. You talk to men. I said, well, yes, I do. So I spent the next several months reading for the first time about feminism and feminist criticism and feminist theory and how it intersected with communication, and again became fascinated by it. So that was how I got involved in gender and communication.
And also, like us, you're teaching in a Jesuit university. So does that play out at all in the way you teach or what you teach or how these subjects then are communicated to your students? Or yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really love teaching in the Jesuit environment. I try to incorporate what I think are essential principles of Jesuit education and their charism in everything that I do. Very early on at Loyola, I was sent to a conference and heard a Jesuit talk about what it meant to be involved in Jesuit education. And he said that Jesuit education must necessarily involve the intersection of theory and practice, that you have to be thoughtful about what you're doing and intellectually inquisitive, but you have to test it against real experience. And then you take that experience and it influences how you build theory. And that you do all of it with the idea that God is your hermeneutic, that you do it with a sense of something that is transcendent, that the knowledge is supposed to be used for something. And one of the things it's supposed to be used for is to make the world better. I mean, it sounds sort of corny, but that's exactly how I feel about education. And I think you can do that at other universities, obviously, but what I love in particular about teaching at a Catholic Jesuit university is that you can say that explicitly. Nobody is surprised when you talk about the intersection of faith and knowledge. And it doesn't have to be Catholicism. I mean, so at Loyola University, for example, we have a very strong Muslim population. We have a very strong Jewish population. And they take their faith seriously. And so you can talk about that. And that means a great deal to me.